it's incomplete. And the reason is because I have lived like miserable corporate circumstances. And those miserable corporate circumstances are so different from running an ultramarathon. They're so different than going through buds. It's so different on so many levels that, okay, cool, you can be cold and wet for a while, but like, you know, how are you going to do soul-sucking, boring ass work every day for someone that you don't respect?
Yeah.
Right? Maybe in an organization that's unethical and toxic, like, you know, and where you believe your calling lies elsewhere. Like, I mean, that's just, I'm soft pedaling that. Like, there's a whole bunch of other circumstances people live through in corporate. We're like, okay, great. Like, how's that ultramarathon helping you right now? Like, I don't think it's helping a lot, to be honest.
Hey, Andrew Sridhar. Sri. Is that right?
Yeah, you got it. How are you?
Glad to have you on Titans of Transition.
Yeah, so even before the SEAL teams, I was on a ship beforehand because I didn't get SEALs out of the academy. There were, I want to say 14, maybe 16 guys from my class who got accepted to the SEAL teams right out. I did not. And so if you want to still go that route, then you need to find a way to lateral transfer in. And the tried and true path to do that, even though it's not many people get selected, is to go on a ship as a shipboard officer. So I did that. I lucked out. I'll spare you a long story there, but I lucked out and got selected for BUDS, basic underwater demolition SEAL training, the basic SEAL training. And yeah, ended up there. After the SEAL teams, I went to business school right as the financial crisis of 2008 was happening, which is both the best and worst time to go to business school because, you know, you've already opted out of the workforce for a little while. So you're spared some of that fear and risk and everything else. And I'm a pretty risk tolerant individual, but had a family. So, you know, it was nice to, you know, for all of us to have some shelter during that time. At the same time, when you're trying to re-enter for internships, you know, not too long later and full-time jobs, it was awfully challenging. So I had always been interested in Wall Street and markets. At the same time, I was thinking I wanted to do something entrepreneurial, but tech was not hiring at all. Ironically, it's a financial crisis, but banks were hiring. So ended up doing trading of commodities derivatives at Barclays Capital, which was super interesting, super fun, but made my way into tech after that. And at the time, there were not a lot of precedents for people who with non-technical backgrounds like myself to go into something like product management in software. Now it's like there's tons of people, but at the time that was not the case. So I had to kind of work my way up into that, and eventually was leading some of the most technical projects at Amazon, at Wayfair, at Capital One on the AI side. Yeah, so lots of pivots along the way.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And so, and then the last pivot into doing what you're doing today, how did that come about?
Well, interestingly, although I am entrepreneurial by nature, this particular pivot happened because I got RIFT, reduction in force, for those who don't know what that means out there. But my team and I got laid off at Wayfair. There were about, I want to say, if you include the one where we got laid off, and I think there were some after, something like 4 RIFs in 3 years. And so my team and I dodged the bullet a few times, but eventually all got hit. And I didn't panic. That's not really my nature. And I had also been, in corporate for a while. So took it easy trying to figure out what was next, but have been passionate about leadership, teams, culture for a very long time. Already had a podcast, had already been writing about it. And
it's the warrior
poet. That's right. That's right. And a buddy of mine is from the SEAL teams that I was in Buzz with me is a coach.
Oh,
And
cool.
I looked at him and I was kind of like, no offense, man, but like we have the same resume. I feel like I can feel like I can do what you do. I'm still evolving my craft, and he is a master of his. But that's how I got started in this.
One thing comes out is that often some of them can be transitions you don't choose that are thrust upon you, and that's the riff. And I've been through several of those myself in my career, and you know, there's a lot wrapped up into that, the emotional impact of that in terms of how do you kind of master the pivot, I guess. And then there's those where you reflect and you consider, the path that you're currently on, the position or the gig you're on, is it the best one for you for various different reasons? And it's more proactive and you choose your timing. So I just wondered, can you talk about lessons learned through the pivots you made and how one masters it, given these different kind of paradigms?
It's a work in progress, but I'll share what I have learned through doing this many times. And maybe we can break it up into the knowing if you want to pivot, the process
Sure.
of
Yeah.
choosing what's next and getting what's next, and then the last one is like actually adjusting once you're in the new thing, right? So let's do the easy one first. So I'm sorry, I'm gonna go out of order, but just to get a quick win, I believe in quick wins early. So the adjusting to what's new, it's funny because I don't give myself too much credit for this, but and maybe it's just the military adaptability, but it in some jobs that I've been in, including this fashion startup in 2011, it was the fastest growing company according to Inc. magazine at the time, like just hyper growth. They needed someone to herd cats, and so I showed up there, and uh, it was me, after SEAL teams in Wall Street, reporting to a woman who reported to a woman, and then there were 39 women under me. We eventually hired one guy under me, but very different environment and a fashion product. And I don't pretend to know a lot about fashion, especially women's fashion. But um, something like 6 weeks in, I met some stakeholder, internal stakeholder, and they thought I had been there for like a year already because of just I don't know what I knew, how I carried myself, and those sorts of things. And so breaking down what I do in those situations is first of all be very humble coming in, um, lose the ego as much as you can. What I have observed sometimes happens with people when they're in a new thing is they just feel this overwhelming need to prove themselves immediately, and a fear that they'll be found out, imposter syndrome, and a little bit of um, overcompensation for not knowing what to do and how to carry themselves. And so they adopt this sort of mask of like what someone should be doing, and then mixed with the risk aversion. And so like I do the opposite of all of those, So I mean I have a pretty big ego that I've been working on over the years. So I'm not holier than thou, but I do, I'm not into change things right away. I'm not into prove myself. Like I've done enough in my career by that point, and I believe in myself enough where like, hey, if I disappoint someone in the first week, it's not going to phase me. It's not a big deal, right? Whereas for other people who maybe haven't gone through hard things, that's an existential dread for them. For me, I'm just like, F it. Like I don't care. I don't have anything to prove to you guys and gals. And then adopt a learning mindset. Just ask stupid questions over and over and over again. Obsess about the details of how does your team actually do their job? How am I supposed to do my job? How does my boss do their job? How does this company make money? Like just all the stupid questions over and over and over again. It's actually kind of rare that new people dig in to that level of detail, even though they're the people who definitely should do that. And then I'm just not afraid to take risks and make decisions when I need to. So that's I said that was the easy one. I spent like 10 minutes on that,
No, but
but
if
yeah,
I can pull on a couple threads there,
of course.
I just love this part about um, not sort of pretending or not trying to boost your cred. You're sort of overreaching, trying to prove yourself, and trying to attain something that you probably already have, and you just don't have enough confidence in yourself. And it actually starts if you're interviewing, it shows up and it's an off-putting thing right from there. But then on the other side of it, someone who's comfortable in their own shoes, or someone who's confident in what they've done, they can look back and say, it wasn't perfect. I learned a lot and I got a wealth of experience that I should just calm down because, it'll be fine. And having that degree of confidence, it's attractive. When I have interviews with people, or I coach people, or I talk to people, and they're unabashed, they're confident in who they are, they know who they are, and they can bring something to the table, and they don't feel like they're trying to prove something all the time. That's actually very attractive to others. And you're more apt to put your trust in that person than someone who comes up with this mask in front of them. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. There's a word, gravitas, right?
Gravitas. Yeah.
Gravitas, or if we just want to say the simple word, gravity, and it applies in all sorts of contexts, not just business, but dating and social relationships and other things, right? And the person who can have a lot of gravity, it's called that for a reason, because you pull people towards you because you're confident, you know who you are, you have a level of independence and self-worth that isn't it, yeah, like not dependent, to reuse the word, on other people.
And you're authentic.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
these days, one of the biggest bad odors people get in relationships is sniffing out someone who's just not being themselves. It's very off-putting. And in the age of AI, we have, even more sensitivity to sort of, am I talking to a real person here?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think that's one thread I wanted to pull on, for sure. What about the sense of a person being stuck that you coach, or how
Yeah.
to get people broken free from their stuckness? I
Yeah.
can put it that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. There's so many elements of this, and uh, if it's not obvious to people, I'm not a mental health professional, although we coaches often, help people with those issues. I'm told I'm good
Well,
at it, but yeah,
yeah,
like, um,
the qualification.
and I'm also not a career coach, right? But I've done enough mentoring of people and coaching, and done enough pivots myself, seen enough companies and industries where I can I can help with a few things. So, um, big reasons people get stuck: stream of consciousness, being depressed, and maybe they don't know they're depressed. So I believe it's called anhedonia, and there's like dysthemia. Um, Anhedonia meaning like you can't get joy out of things. Dysthemia, I believe, is if I recall correctly, it's like a low grade depression which can last months, years, decades. And that is a huge cause for a lot of people. Um, because there's associated with depression, for people who are familiar with cognitive behavioral therapy, which is one of the few modalities that's actually very proven in terms of its effectiveness in psychology and in clinical help. Um, there's a bunch of cognitive distortions, and one of them is hopelessness. So if you are depressed, like you are very likely to fall into a bunch of these cognitive distortions, including hopelessness. Um, Including all or nothing thinking, like I've got to be Elon Musk or I'm a failure, right? Um, or generalization, right? Of like, well, like this one bad thing happened, like that must mean that everything I'm doing is bad. And there's a bunch of there's like 12 or 14. I won't run through all of them. So depression is a big one. Lack of self worth, uh, rejection sensitivity disorder, uh, ADHD. Related to ADHD is just simple lack of impulse control. So if you look at perfectionism and procrastination, which are way more overlapping than a lot of people realize. There's a few great books which I'll mention, but and if you can remind me, but in one of them, the procrastination equation by Dr. Peter Steele. It's great. I wouldn't start there for people trying to fix their procrastination. Like I said, I'll drop a couple other options. But it's kind of like the 201 class or the 301 class. I think it's a little denser, but he breaks down procrastination into its component parts in a kind of mathematical, simple formula way, and then breaks down with like different for the first few chapters, like what kind of procrastinator are you, like which of these elements in the formula do you specifically have a problem with. And a couple of those are impulsivity. Like some people just have higher innate impulsivity. It doesn't mean you can't fix it, it doesn't mean you can't work on it, but like you just need you need more stimulation, you need more novelty. And some people also they time discount differently, right? We all know those people who, like, if there's something down the road, like they're happy to sacrifice for it now. And like we all know that is a huge part of what being an adult is, which also stigmatizes the failure for people, right? When like it's pervasive. And so some people, by their neurochemistry, especially ADHD people, are like, they have a much, much, much harder time sucking it up and doing the thing for the long term. So that there's a host of things there. And then, and then there's a social aspect of like fear of rejection. So like, and that manifests in a whole bunch of ways. One could be, oh, I want to start a business, but like if it fails, then I'm a failure. Or it could be family reasons, right? Like, what's my family going to think of me if I give up on this thing? And take risk. There's sunk cost fallacy. I know I'm like, sorry, I'm enumerating like 1,000 things, Joe. There's a sunk cost fallacy of like, oh, I spent 10 years in management consulting. Like, it's so much time and effort. Like I might as well see it through. There's plenty of people who stay in the military.
Right.
Yeah, there's plenty of people who stay in the military for 20 years, even though at 5 years, like they were already bored, done, whatever. Now, granted, like I loved the SEAL teams. I got out mainly for family reasons, also because I wanted to there were other things I wanted to build and create in the world. Uh, and it's not like, and I also wanted to write about political things occasionally and things like that. And I didn't like having those restrictions, right? But the job was amazing. But there are lots of jobs in the military that aren't amazing, right? And where you're living your dream. But people stay in for 20 years because there's sunk cost fallacy, there's security, there's all those things. So I threw a bunch at you.
Yeah, the sunk cost one I often tie to comfort zone, right? So it's like maybe you're really not jazzed about what you're doing, but the fear of stepping away from something that's okay keeps you in the comfortable zone or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, okay, I'll toss a few more out, right? Sometimes people are waiting for a revelation. They're waiting for a Eureka moment, like road to Damascus thing, like whatever cliche story we want to go back to. Like they're waiting for this aha to be like, oh my gosh, like this is my passion now, or this is the idea for the startup. And sure, those things happen sometimes. And I believe strongly those things happen like more to certain people than others. But you can't wait forever to try the new thing. And like the other different types of people are the people who are like passion people versus not. Like, in a sense, we're all children in big bodies. We all want to do something we're passionate about. But I also strongly believe that some people are like Cal Newport. If you and your listeners are familiar with Cal
Deep
Newport,
work.
the career capital guy, the
Yeah.
deep work guy, like very, very smart on work things, but he is a very, very certain type of individual. He is the guy who will do like boring stuff for, I'll leave the expletive out, then just like not really be excited about stuff and just like plod every day. Again, there are many people who are not like that. I am not like that. But despite those differences, like sometimes you just need to try a new thing and not wait for the eureka moment. And maybe, to Cal Newport's credit, like maybe do something that is not like, going to the circus or, acting on Broadway or whatever your dream is, and like, but try a new thing and like build some mastery. And like we all know that, like, empirically, regardless of whether we're all on a spectrum of different things, I don't mean autism, like if we're on a spectrum of different preferences, blah blah blah, like we know empirically though that mastery does, for pretty much all of us, produce like good neurochemicals and confidence and all sorts of other things.
Right. But one of the things I wanted to bring up is that we may all know, like, just to use the example you just used about mastery, we may all know what the result can be for people who lean into that. It's the question of how, and how we're different and we're wired differently. And this comes up when I coach people a lot. People typically know what they want. They're kind of stuck because of the tapes in their heads, the soundtracks. What's the right way for me to do this? And it just doesn't fit them. So you may be a more spontaneous person. That's what I am. To use the Colby Index terminology, I'm a quick start. It's easy for me to initiate with what appears to be unfounded grounding and high risk. I have enough data that supports my intuition to take a move in a direction. So for me, that's natural. If I'm in a culture and environment that's keeping me from doing that, it's not a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
And the opposite's true too. If you're a person who needs to see a lot of data and facts and demonstrated case studies of what works before you'll take a step, then it's going to be very uncomfortable if you're working for someone, for example, or you're in a culture that demands you to take quick action and get quick results right now. And I think one of the challenges is you have to determine what kind of person you are, how you were made, what you bring to the table in terms of your natural gifts, and the ways that you show up and you're the most effective. Those can be then applied to any challenge, to any scenario, and you can be successful, right?
Yeah.
It's when it's going across the grain, typically I can pick up on this dissonance, this sort of in the center of a person's friction, and they don't know what, so that can be a cause sometimes for feeling stuck, because they're like, I'm being pulled to be a certain kind of person that I'm not. And this is beyond, do I have the skills? I mean, because you can develop skills in many things and become competent. But that upper elite level of performance tends to come when you combine the training and the competence with the natural innate abilities in that particular scenario. So anyway, those are some thoughts. What do you think? Get your reaction.
I so many great thoughts there. The thing that sticks out to me the most is that some people really want to figure out, like, they're stuck on how to do the thing. And the reality is, for so many things, there is no playbook. So, if you want to be a doctor, there's a playbook. There is a path, right? If you want to be a Top Gun pilot, there is a path. Now, granted, like, you might not make it, but in either of those fields, but there's a very clear path. Accounting, same thing. But like, for many things in life, probably the most important things in life and the most rewarding, there's not a path. And then there's so many things where we delude ourselves that there is a path, but the reality is like the thing is not that hard, and plenty of people have succeeded just winging it and just talking to people, learning to people, making mistakes, and just keep going, and having the fortitude to make mistakes and bounce back. Resilience, right? Is if you wait for the perfect playbook and just study forever on how to start that business, like you're never actually going to do it. You could spend your entire life studying how to start a business, but like at some point you need to just do it. And that point is probably way earlier than we're comfortable with.
I have an idea I would like to try. Let's translate these discussions back to the whole buds situation.
Okay.
Because I'll just tell you where I'm coming from, and maybe we just test the idea. It may flame out. I don't care.
Sure.
So,
Quick
because
start.
of how I'm wired. So one of the things I've learned talking to the few people that I've met who've been SEAL team graduates, BUDS graduates, is, and there's stuff like this available, obviously, in movies and whatnot, but it's often, and David Brown is one that comes to mind because he was really small guy. He was like, I don't even know if he was 5 foot. He was really small and light. The typical paradigm people have is to be successful as a SEAL, you have to be ultra macho in the sense of physique, strength, and that's what's really going to carry the day. But what I end up hearing a lot of stories is there's something else that they're searching for, and it's that resilience, I guess adaptability. I'm just riffing here, but they're looking for something else. Yes, physicality definitely makes a difference. There's no question because they put you through hell, you know. But the people that don't end up ringing the bell are often not the ones you would expect. And the people who do ring the bell are often the ones that you don't expect to ring the bell. So I think there's a crossover here into what we were just talking about.
Yeah, I mean, physicality is necessary, but not sufficient.
I like that. Not sufficient.
Yeah. There are so many more elements that go into being a SEAL. And there are lots of great athletes out there in the world, right? But they would not make great SEALs for a zillion reasons, right? Some of them are individually how they would operate. Many are, yeah, like you can train, to be an Olympian in, all these circumstances, but there are great athletes who like actually when stuff gets hairy, like they're not going to be that resilient. Some of them show up to buds and they wash out. They don't have that determination to and follow through to get through that. Adaptability, like team ability, which is kind of a funny word that some of my SEAL brothers use, but I like it. So some people just aren't as teamable, especially under pressure. It's one thing to be, a great team when everything's going well, but when shots are fired or it's cold and wet, then you see people's true colors and who they're actually out for. So anyway, there's a zillion things there that make physicality not necessary but not sufficient.
What I'm thinking about is, we often think about qualifications for a job, physicality to be a SEAL. We often think about obviously grit and resilience and determination as important factors. But I think that we get stuck sometimes in a situation and there's lots of different factors. You talked about a lot of different psychological potential causes for feeling stuck and to not successfully navigate through. But there's things that are, I would say, the sort of the core essentials of your being that we don't talk about enough. And we don't talk about And we started this conversation out talking about being the real you, being unapologetic. When you talk about one of your pivots and showing up and saying, I don't care. I know not everything's going to be a success in the first week. I'm not going to freak out, right? And how attractive that confidence is. And I think that if your center isn't, if you don't really know who you are and you don't really have the ability, I did martial arts for a good amount of time when I was younger in Kung Fu. And the first thing you learn to do is stand and get your center of gravity low.
Mm-hmm.
And then you talk about moving, but you don't do anything until you get your stance right.
Yeah.
So sometimes I think we talk about the things on the outside and we don't talk enough about the things on the inside.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So and I think that comes out when you put anyone under a tremendous amount of stress. And
yeah, for
Bud
sure.
is a great case study of being under a tremendous amount of stress.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's even more confusing because of all of the people who are writing and talking and everything else about grit and resilience. And it's there are a few problems with it. One is a lot of people talking about this stuff haven't actually done things that are that hard or stressful or and so it's like, okay, well, your lived experience doesn't match up with what you're talking about, even if you are a fancy PhD at someone and have a best-selling book, right? And might happen to model, much or tell much of your stories and data based off of military stories. You yourself haven't actually lived that. And the other issue is that resilience and grit are conflated a little bit, and they're not the same thing to me. Resilience being how you bounce back, right? And grit is kind of this overall baseline for how you get through things. And that's my own shorthand. But the other main issue is that a lot of times there's no recipe for, okay, cool, you've convinced me through this entire book how to have, that I need to have grit. Like, okay, what and resilience, what do I do now? And if you want, we can talk about resilience tools. I've got some tips for people, but like the standard answer is do hard things, right? Like go, do your ice bath, go run an ultramarathon, like all this stuff. And to me, it's an incomplete solution. It's incomplete. And the reason is because I have lived like miserable corporate circumstances. And those miserable corporate circumstances are so different from running an ultramarathon. They're so different than going through buds. It's so different on so many levels that, okay, cool, you can be cold and wet for a while, but like, how are you going to do soul sucking, boring ass work every day for someone that you don't respect, right? Maybe in an organization that's unethical and toxic, like, and where you believe your calling lies elsewhere. Like, I mean, that's just, I'm soft pedaling that. Like, there's a whole bunch of other circumstances people live through in corporate. We're like, okay, great. Like, how's that ultra marathon helping you right now? Like, I don't think it's helping a lot, to be honest. So focusing on that, who we are, is still critical. So there are elements that I look back at Buds of where sometimes, or in the SEAL teams on operations, commanding operations in Iraq, where like there is this kind of being centered element. You mentioned, center of gravity, but in a almost a, I'm going to put in quotes, air quotes here for people listening, spiritual sense of like being present, right? So Stoicism, Buddhism, mindfulness, right? Like if you can lose some element of being conscious of yourself, right? We use the phrase self-consciousness all the time, self-conscious, but like that's what it means. It's like where you're thinking about yourself and how other people perceive you. If you can lose that, and if you can lose the hey, this is what happened in the past, and this is what might happen in the future. And if you can lose all of that and just be present, because you have no choice to do that in buds. Like, and the people who obsessively think about tomorrow are more likely to quit because, like, it's just sheer misery, as miserable as you can possibly imagine from this moment until time interminable, relatively speaking, that, like, you can't think about anything except just this moment right now. But how, doing that is key to unlocking a whole lot of things in life.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I mean, and when you're under those intense circumstances, whether it's experience like buds or you're going through corporate hell and you're not sure whether or not you're on the next layoff, and then what are you going to do? There's a bit of biology here, to consider is all of your energy needs to be focused on the big challenge that's in front of you. So if you take yourself out of the present moment, future, past, doesn't matter. You are expending energy. Your brain is expending energy. Your body is getting pulled into that. And you're getting distracted, all those other things. So the challenge needs to be met that's in front of you.
Yeah, Joe, can I give another example?
Please.
Just because this is a little bit, it's almost a rant. This is how passionate I am about this stuff.
Love
is
it.
like, let's say you have built a business and, you cashed out your family's 401k and you spent all these nights and weekends away from your wife and family and kids. And, your friends barely call you anymore to social events and birthdays because they know you're not going to show up because you haven't shown up before because you've been working on your business. In your mind, though, it's all for an end, right? You're having an impact, you're employing people, and your family's going to get to this, great horizon. But some market event happens and, you're losing money hand over fist, and you spent 5 years building this thing, maybe 10, maybe 20, and now you got to fire like half your workforce and you don't know what's next. How much is that ice bath you've been doing every day helping you? Right? Like, I don't think it's helping at all. I really don't.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that you climbed Everest at that point. It doesn't matter that you made it through buds. Like, the situation is fundamentally effing different. And we need other tools to solve these things.
Yeah. That's really cool. You made me think of this thing I say a lot, is that often there's a disconnect in a person's situation because they're struggling with the world is not the way the world, mean their situation is not the way it should be, right? And they're stuck in this loop and they're talking about it, but I shouldn't be treated this way. My boss should listen to me, whatever the tape is. And sometimes you just have to say, whoa, that's interesting, but that's not the world it is, so you're not dealing with the world it is. So in your situation, ice bath, all these other things, the world, the way the world should be, are great. But right now, you got to take care of your family. You got to take care of the most essential things.
Yeah.
You have to face reality. Otherwise, you're living in dreamland,
Yeah. And
it crosses over into the stuckness. Let me finish the thought.
Yeah, please.
Often people that I don't consider myself sort of the traditional career coach either. I'm more the coach that gets into discussions about why people aren't happy with their career.
Yeah.
And one of the situations is just this. They keep waiting for things the world that they think is the right world to live in arrives. Because, hey, I've done all these things, I'm so valuable. And, and maybe even their leadership is saying, well, your time will come, just, hang out, whatever. But in reality, they know deep down, it's not going to change. The culture's not working for me. So you really do have a choice. You have agency. Agency, there's a good word maybe we can talk about. You have agency to make a decision. If you're going to stay, be satisfied with the world that is and be okay with it. Otherwise, change your situation.
Yeah.
There is no middle ground. You're not changing it. You've tried for the last 5 years. It's not changing,
Right.
So anyway, it just brought that to mind. I wanted to throw that out. And then agency came out.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think your point generalizes to all sorts of things, right? It's it gets to one of the pieces of the heart of being stuck. Um, there's a related concept that you reminded me of, Peter Pan syndrome, right? That's the concept I'm talking about. We all can fall prey to that. Again, some more than others, and be in denial about what the real situation is and crave a world that is not reality. But something that I think about a lot, because I'm, an entrepreneurial person in tech. Steve Jobs, the phrase they used to use for him was reality distortion field. Right. And
Yeah.
he was able to achieve great things. Yet and part of maybe the reason he was able to have this vision of the future for so many different products and industries is because he refused to accept what the reality of the world was. But the maybe one of the causes of him, like, according to many, not being a really great person, or maybe even, not to speculate, maybe not even really a happy person, is because he couldn't accept reality, right? So how do we get the best of both worlds? I don't pretend to know the answer, right? But I suspect it's like not tolerating the world as it is on the long term, or maybe in some specific niches short term, but yet being generally able to see the world objectively as it is today, and hold that loosely without resentment. Maybe, I don't know. What do you think?
For our tactics, obviously, he was a force for change. He was a change agent. He had a very clear vision of what he wanted to do, and he leaned into it hard, right? And so that's the other thing. If a person wants to stay in their situation, there are tactics, and I'm sure you have your team and your leadership tactics. One is to really lean into relationships. It's often, especially you bring up being in the tech world, we always talk about people, process, technology, but the behavior is technology, process, people. And people,
Yeah.
the people area is only in because you can say, well, just before I'm going to roll this out, I better check on Frank because I know he's an a-hole and he'll probably oppose me on this. So how can I remove this barrier as an afterthought? But to get your credibility up, you have to invest time demonstrating your trustworthiness and your ability to deliver. And it goes against the grain for a lot of people to do that, but that's a tactic where you then extend your circle of influence because of the credibility that you have gained. Then you can start to affect and move and affect the culture and bring forward the reality that you'd like to see. But when
Yeah.
a person is stuck and they don't even understand they have any control at all, right? And they're waiting for the change to happen, that was the sort of the
Yeah.
first level to
No.
crack that egg. So.
Yeah, no, I forgot to address the word you raised, which is a good word, which is agency. And and there is some tension there, right? We
Yeah,
can't
definitely.
assume that we're responsible, or that we can control everything, because that's a recipe for misery. Yet the paradox is, like, in order to affect the great change in your life that you need at any given juncture and over a lifetime, you kind of do need to assume that you can do it, and you are responsible for doing it, and not waiting for change. So I do use the phrase full agency all the time, but you also have to be able to give yourself grace and realize that we're all mortal in a big world.
Mhm.
And so another word I use, well, we're throwing out words, but is nudge. Like, if
Yeah,
you can, like, just nudge things a little bit today
small moves.
in the direction you want,
Yeah,
and that's the best you can hope for. And if with enough nudges, like, things will
move.
go your way, more than they have
But
been.
you drive with your small moves forward in the direction of your goal, you can be successful. But if you
Yeah,
get distracted, you know,
yeah.
not so
Distract
good.
Distraction is a tough
Killer.
concept, though. Like, focus and distraction, I feel like, are, um
Maybe
the
overused.
word. well, the words are they're imbued with so much judgment,
Yeah.
right? So for some of my clients and other folks, sometimes myself, like, it's almost like we're yelling at ourselves to be focused, don't be distracted, be focused, don't be distracted. Um, and the idea that anyone is distracted, is we all look down upon that, even though we're all prey to it. And again, like if you are an ADHD person, you are just more distractible. There's nothing wrong with who you are. That is just the case. There are tools, there are medications. I am not a doctor, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like, and I am ADHD. I have not actually tried medication yet, but I worked on through other things. But you're just more distractible. But like, we're bombarded with stimuli all the time, and especially for those who are in business, right? And if we want to just make it even more narrow in the corporate world, there's stimuli all the time, right? All sorts of characters who are emailing you, offended, trying to win your trust, like a bunch of different priorities. And it's so tempting. And I realize in retrospect, like looking at my own career, like there were times early on and maybe even middle where like I was reacting to too many of those stimuli. And some people, they just, maybe they had great mentors, maybe it's just their personality. And sometimes it's just pure selfishness because they know focusing on these narrow things will get them promoted and get them stuff, get them more money. But either way, some people are just, I'm impressed, when a 25-year-old can just tune out all the noise and just, get to the heart of the matter. It's harder in corporate, right? You're not curing cancer, right? If your company is curing cancer, the goal is curing cancer, right? If you are on a SEAL team, like the mission is very clear. Yes, you can get distracted in those
But
fields.
everything that happens within that broad canvas
Yeah, right. But if
is
you're
changing all the
working,
time.
yeah, but if you're working for Amazon, right, or Meta, just the sheer number of opportunities and like, but their salience is like they're all kind of in this middle band, right? And there's very few, unless someone tells you it's the huge priority, like that is up here, and there's like barely anything that is that is very low salience that you feel like you can ignore.
Yeah. No, that's fair. And I do like that you brought out, the differences in people. Again, awareness of who you are and how you modulate that against what you want to accomplish. What degree do you let yourself be distracted? Because there's actually a really big advantage for people who are generalists today than there used to be.
Yeah.
So, and breakthroughs and technology, major shifts in technology don't occur within the paradigm that's ruling the day. They occur at the edges, right? And so there's real value in that. So sometimes I think it's good to budget the time that you and allow yourself, if you're that kind of a person who has many interests, and I'm like that in many different areas, try to allow yourself a block of time to do it. Don't try to shut it off because then you're going to be doing this again, right? Yeah. So just so much, Andrew. I just feel like we could probably go another hour, but I just want to be respectful of the time. What I would like to do, I had a couple notes. If any books come to mind, we can drop them in the show notes. I know you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Resilience tools, maybe spend a couple minutes, talk about that, and then we'll do sort of a wrap up.
Yeah. I will mention just one book, one additional book in addition to the one I mentioned earlier, the Procrastination Equation. For anyone struggling with perfectionism, procrastination, I can't recommend enough the book How to Be an Imperfectionist by Stephen Guise, Guise, Stephen Guise with a PH. I'm having to spell this a lot. How to Be an Imperfectionist. It's a blue book. Got it here somewhere. It's like 125 pages, very small. You get on paperback for probably less than $10 on Amazon, right? So good. Resilience tools. So we got to take a quick step back to the fundamentals. And ironically, I don't know if I've ever seen anyone describe it this way. I'm sure Buddha did millennia ago, but for the average person, let's say adult, in Western society, to confine it a little bit, uh, you're up here, and then stimulus comes in, and you have a spike, and then it takes you a very long time to come down, and then another spike happens pretty soon after that. What we're trying to do through mindfulness and presence is bring your baseline down. So instead of starting up here, you're starting here. And then when a stimulus comes in, it's not a huge spike, it's a little spike. And then you come down super quick. And then stimuli are always going to come in, but your reactivity frequency lowers too. So it's a triple win. You have a lower baseline, you have a smaller spike of reaction, anxiety, fear, whatever, and the frequency's less. And so there are other tools besides mindfulness, but like that is the core, because that is what is going to help you experience less in the moment, and then come down faster to a baseline of what should be normal. But like so many people in civilization, like, aren't experiencing a real normal all the time. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think about all we get with media and hitting us all the time, all the really short bursts of the TikTok world and all the attention grabbing things from technology standpoint, the phone, all that stuff interrupts, all driving dopamine, all going wild.
Exactly. Yeah.
Plays right into that
Right.
problem. And so mindfulness, I don't know what the specific tactics are, or if there's books you can recommend on that. But
yeah, totally. Well, I mean, before I get there, I'm glad you mentioned dopamine, and if we want to throw in cortisol, like we're all talking neurochemicals these days. Like, but improving your neurochemistry, which is possible. I understand Andrew Huberman is a controversial figure somewhat now,
I like
but
it.
but like the science on his podcast is great, right? So for
good.
people who want to learn about their neurochemistry and how to adjust it, highly recommend, right? Despite whatever. So I don't pretend to be an expert on him, just like I'm not an expert on Michael Jackson. So the things you can do to increase your mindfulness are walk, especially in nature, without AirPods in, like not listening to this podcast. Although you should listen to Joe's podcast every day besides that. But meditation is the biggest game changer, honestly. Making sure you're getting good sleep, getting rid of toxic people in your life. Box breathing is a huge one. It doesn't have to be the box. So the typical box breathing, where people don't know, is I'm just going to use an arbitrary number of seconds, but let's call it inhale for 5 seconds, hold for 5 seconds, exhale for 5 seconds, hold for 5 seconds, right? I do a modified version of that. It's beyond the scope of this conversation. And so those are some things you can do for mindfulness. For people who have never done meditation before, for many people, it might sound a little woo, but like, trust me, like it is the thing that has probably changed my life more than any other practice or tool. And the best part is it's free, and it's been around for millennia. And it works. But if you need to get started, Tara Brach's podcast, BRACH, like the candy, BRACH, Tara Brach, is free. Every other episode, she does a meditation. The others are talks, and then, which are also good. And then, like Calm or Headspace apps, they have 3 free trials. Like, try for 30 days, do the basics, and if you don't want to pay anymore, like, they're amazing.
And I just want to interrupt. I mean, I'm a person of faith. I'm a Christian, and so long history of the spiritual fathers doing meditation practices, prayer, but there's a little bit of a nuanced difference, obviously, between the way the practices are, the difference between emptying versus filling, some of these things. So if you are a person kind of my persuasion, don't be afraid to go back and learn about the early church mystics and their approach to meditation. Has many of the same physical benefits that you're going to find. Lean into your prayer life spiritually if you're kind of my ilk.
Yeah. Well, I grew up Catholic, and I'm not practicing anymore. But one thing that I find is that there are a lot of Christians and probably people of other faith persuasions who have been told by their ministers that meditation is evil, and and that they should fear Buddhism, Stoicism, these sorts of things, right? And I don't claim to be a Buddhism expert, right? But the reality is, like, they're tools that are compatible with your existing faith. And why not avail yourself of those, like, really, really practical tools?
So at this point, sort of wrapping up, first of all, this is great conversation. I feel like we've gone all over the place. I think our
Yeah.
mutual ADHD is showing its colors. But anyway, I hope this has been beneficial to you all listening in and watching this. Where can people find you if they want to reach out to you, Sri?
Yeah. I have a podcast also, the Warrior Poet podcast, about to rebrand at some point in the future, but I will let everyone know. But it's under the Warrior Poet podcast. And AndrewSridhar.com, AndrewSridhar.com. My name is obviously in the episode. Yeah, that's where I am. And you can find me, all my socials through there and everything. And yeah, would love to talk with people.
Yeah, and as I just referred to, it might be good to have another conversation. So if you're listening in, drop your comments and questions, and we get enough interest, we'll schedule another time to get together and field some of those questions. So listen, Andrew, I really appreciate your time. It's been great getting to know you, and look forward to staying in touch in the future.
Yeah, Joe, this has been so much fun. Great getting to know you as well and talking with your audience, and I appreciate you having me on.
All right, great. Thank you. Hey, thanks for joining me today on Titans of Transition. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Please check the show notes for additional information.